Where's the kingdom of God? Where's the kingdom of God in the story? Last week, the kingdom of God, like I said, was in the surprise. Because they expected it here, and it was actually over here. Today, the kingdom of God is also in a surprise. And it's a surprise specifically to the hearers, which were the Pharisees and the people who focused on the rules. And that is this. You won't find the kingdom in the law, but rather in love. That was Jesus' message to the Pharisees. That's why he told this story. You won't find the kingdom in the law, but you find it rather in love. In other words, it seems that the kingdom of God is not as concerned with conventional thinking as we are. We like things, to be organized and rules and structure. And by the rules and structure of the time, everything the dad did was bad. He was a bad father. If you put on the list of do not be like in parenting class, it would be like this guy. Because he did everything wrong. He let 2 kids walk all over him. 2 kids he let walk all over him with no consequence to either. He let 2 kids break the law and didn't do anything to either one of them. Notice I'm saying 2 kids. Usually we think of 1 kid who broke the law. The younger son broke the law, but the older son broke the law as well. How did the older son break the law? The younger one is easy. We talk about that's easy. How did the older son break the law? What was his sin? So most of us would say his sin was resentment, envy, jealousy. But you know what? I'm not saying it's not a sin, but it's not a sin to them. Because Judaism didn't care about these inside sins. Anger, resentment, bitterness, like these fluffy things, get those out of here. They cared only about rules. They cared only about rules. So I'm saying, aside from those inside sins, he had an outside sin. He broke the law. What law did he break? Very good. The 4th commandment says what? Honor your father and mother. And he did not honor his father here. He flat out disobeyed with him. Because it said that the dad came out and pleaded with him, and he would not go in. So he not only was rude in his tone, he not only was disrespectful in the way he berated him, but he flat out disobeyed him. Now the reason why, you and I, we don't think of that as a sin. Like what he did wasn't that big a deal. The reason why, I'm just being honest right here, not trying to be funny, but I'm just being honest, is because the way our kids talk to us today. And we look at what he said, and we're like, what's the big deal? My kids say that every morning before school, But back then, that shows how low we've gotten. Back then, this is not how you talk to your father. I don't even want to say back then, could you have talked to your dad this way? I'll get this verse right here. Verse 28, back on the screen. It said, he was angry and would not go in. Therefore, his father came out and pleaded with him. This wouldn't happen when I was growing up. Would this happen when you grew up? My dad would plead with me and beg me? No, the belt would come off, and I'd be inside. That's how it worked back in the day. And even more so back in the 1st century. But for this was a big deal is what I'm saying. He disobeyed, he was disrespectful, he broke the law. The older son was just as guilty in this story as the younger son. They both broke the law. They both were guilty. The only difference in the story is the behavior. Both of them broke the law. Both of them were shown mercy. The only difference was in their response to the mercy and forgiveness of the Father. But the kingdom of God, Jesus' message to them, the kingdom of God isn't in the law. The kingdom of God is in love. And nothing the younger son could do could negate it. And nothing the older son could do could negate it either. Because the kingdom of God is in love and no sin can negate that. The hearers of this story didn't like this. This is not an easy pill for them to swallow. Why? Because as I said earlier, they built their entire political platform, their entire life was exactly the opposite of this. It was that there's a system, and if you do good, you get rewarded. If you do bad, you get punished. And if we're honest, that's a system we like as well. That's why we don't struggle with. Nobody struggles with, why does bad stuff happen to bad people? Nobody has ever asked that question. Why does bad stuff happen to bad people? We want bad stuff for bad people. We want good for good, we want bad for bad. We want if you follow the law, you get rewarded. If you break the law, you get punished. And that sounds very nice, but that's not Jesus. That's not the kingdom of God. That can be your kingdom. That can be how you write the rules. That can be man-made religion. That's fine. But Jesus came very clear. The kingdom of God is not in law. The kingdom of God is in love. And he came to turn the world upside down by saying that. And as the hearers were listening to this story, For sure, as Jesus told the story of a father with two sons, and the younger was so disobedient, yet somehow he was forgiven, they thought of another story from their history. There was a parallel that they were drawn to as they heard the story of a father with two sons, and the younger was bad, but the younger was still chosen by the father to be blessed. Who's that? Jacob and Esau. And that story, it seems like the father did the wrong thing again there. Because Jacob was sneaky, and Jacob was bad, and Jacob was disobedient. Esau stood by his father's side. But somehow in that, again, God doesn't operate based on the law. God chose the younger. God chose that guy to be blessed because God doesn't make decisions. Here's the important part. God is telling the Pharisees, I don't make decisions the way you make decisions. I don't make decisions based on just the rules. I don't make decisions based on just the law. I make them based on love.